Welcome to the Nightly Rant
with
your hosts, Mike
and Torya.
This is the show where we examine society from a sarcastic point of view.
If you like insane conversations, this is definitely the show for you.
Let's get into today's topic. YPN people, I don't know about you, but I love helping out a friend. That's why I want to shout out my friend Brian Little and his podcast, Your Favorite Blockhead. This is the only show that manages to weave together peanuts and MMA into one heck of an amazing podcast. You can find Your Favorite Blockhead wherever your favorite podcasts reside and at yourfavoriteblockhead.com. Do me a huge favor and listen to Brian's show. You'll be entertained and you'll help out a friend. Now, as I said, let's get into today's topic. All right, guys, so we're back, and we are coming into part 2 of our appearance from Your Favorite Blockhead, and we were talking about authentic anger. Welcome back, Brian.
Always good to come back on the show, bud. Had to take my quick water break there. Everybody needs a Snoopy cup, man. Everybody needs a little something to get them through the day.
Well, we had a great conversation, in the beginning part, talking about what happened with Torya and her business, and we kind of slid over into authentic anger, and we kind of discussed the difference between
some unknown territory.
And we discussed the difference between emotional anger and authentic anger, and we said it's another way of saying intellectual anger, because I think people don't have an idea of how you can be intellectually angry, and the only thing I can ever explain is like you hear somebody repeat a scenario to you and you agree with them that that's how it went down, but then you hear their interpretation and you say, how in the world could they come up with that interpretation? And that makes you intellectually angry, because you're like, you almost feel like they're doing it on purpose. They're lying. They're making up a story, so
bad timing on that one, Mike. I almost snotted water out of my nose.
Well,
at least it was water.
We're going to get into part 2 where we really get into a little more depth about authentic anger and different situations. And we end up talking a little bit about the feud between you and Torya, and that becomes rather interesting too. So everybody listen up. Here we go. We're going in, listening to the show. It's interesting though, because you bring to mind the fact that I have a son who's a sophomore in high school. He's a typical boy, he tests the envelope. So he uses a word like forever and constantly, to the point where you want to strangle him. Like, what? If you say that word one more time, I'm going to kill you, But instead, you just let him say it. But you kind of point out, do you even know what that word means? And then you define the word for him.
Siri, help me out.
Well, yeah. And it's
welcome to our era now. Yep.
So you define the word for him and be like, what does that mean? And then you explain to him, well, do you think that's something you should use in public? Well, no. Okay, then. Well, I'm going to let you use it around me because it gets it out of your system. And that way you don't use it around somebody else. And I remember when all of the kids were younger, teachers would say, and other parents would say, oh, they're so well behaved. You're so lucky. And we would always laugh and say, well, yeah, they are well behaved, but you should see what some of the things they do at home. Right.
Right. What they bring home to you.
Right. Yeah. And so but I prefer that when they're out in public, they be on their best behavior. And when they're at home, they get to let their hair down a little bit. And so, unfortunately, a lot of parents try to control how they behave at home.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're just as guilty of doing that. But most of the time, we're guilty of things that are out of just modesty. I guess it's one of those, like if you have a drink, mom wants you to put that on a coaster. Well, stepdad is going to reinforce that because that's what mama wants. Happy wife, happy life. But there's still some things that go to, okay, if it's courteous, or, when you use the restroom, I mean, come on, you know what to do. I mean, the toilet's a wonderful invention if you use the mechanism 3 inches above it, known as the toilet handle. Middle school kids don't know how to use that.
Right.
And adults don't know how to. That could be a rant I can get off on what I've seen in public restrooms and how people are just leaving their diapers in a restaurant and expecting a waitress or waiter to pick that up. Seriously, they are not your mother. But anyway, go for it.
On your topic, there is somebody in our office building, professional people work here, and they get into the bathroom every freaking morning, before 6 a.m., and take a giant dump, and they leave it there. And obviously, I'm talking the women's bathroom. And they don't flush, And like, it's like, what are you doing with your life that you can't flush a toilet?
Insert authentic rage here.
Right?
Well, and that's I think the thing. But that's the thing I think that people need to understand, because we beat a dead horse sometimes. But like we always say, you could have 20 opinions about 20 different things, and I could agree with 5 of your 20 opinions and disagree with 15. That doesn't make me your enemy. There's things we're going to be allies on, and there's things we're going to be opponents. But but did I ever say enemy? No, because I'm not setting out to destroy you, and you're not setting out to destroy me. And I think that's the thing where society loses it, and you can't be authentic with some people in society, because if you are, they get all rageful and I can't believe you acted that way.
Thus, the reason I brought up the Fahrenheit 451 reference, because that is a warning about a dystopian society. Why are they burning books? And right now, it's banning some of them. They're burning them because that brings out free thinking, it brings out intellect, and it brings out people who are going to be offended. One way to solve this completely is kind of like we talked about with prohibition. We get rid of books altogether. We get rid of information and education so that we can all be in this happy little dystopian world that is disconnected from any kind of relation that we could have of what you're talking about right now. Just because we disagree, we're just challenging each other's thoughts. That's really it.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not that you're out to destroy me or make me look stupid and vice versa. But like, I will tell you, like, you did bring up an interesting issue. I'm not going to mention the name of the faith, but there's a religion that I investigated a little bit, more from the standpoint of what it was all about, not from the standpoint of let's go be one of these. And they would have these meetings. And first of all, if you weren't a member, you had to sit at the back of their worship center. And if you were a member, you sat in the front of the worship center. And then they had written articles, and the articles had numbered paragraphs. And so they would ask a question. Well, question number 1, the answer was within paragraph number 1. And if you didn't read it exactly as it was, they'd go to the next person and say, can you please give me the answer? If the words were, I'm on Squadcast, and you just said, I'm on the air. Nope, sorry, that's not what it said. You got to wait until they say exactly what's in the article. Well, that's brainwashing.
Sure.
And that's not authentic. So many people do that kind of stuff where they're taught by organizations that they trust that this is the way to do it, and they're being misled. And unfortunately, people say, "Oh, it's how come they're not smart enough to know?" It's not about being smart. They've been taught this and indoctrinated with this, and so their brains think a little differently than ours would. Because they're not taught to think outside. They're taught to think only what we've told you is what's true.
Exactly. You need to know Captain, my Captain moment right there in that church pretty quick. Because that absolutely breaks my heart to hear that, Mike. I was going to be facetious and say, you must be talking about the church that came out of Lubbock, Texas, known as the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. Like, I'm assuming you're talking about a different one, though. I can't take them seriously, not because I'm mad at them. I can't take them serious because I just burst up last time I read their ideology. I'm like, y'all are just so funny.
I have to tell you something hilarious. So most people don't know about the Pastafarians. So like, you're like 10 points higher in my book than you were before. But there's a dude in Vancouver, Canada, who fought the government and won to be able to wear his colander on his head in his driver's license photo as religious headdress. He was a Pastafarian. It makes me laugh every time I read about it. And he's like, it's on all of his photo ID except for his passport, because passports allowed no headwear at all.
Interesting to know what hill he's willing to die on. I tried to get y'all to have the dying on the hill with the Torians and the all of the battles that we had and the shots fired. But golly, that's an interesting hill to die on. Wow. I will wear my colander.
Be prepared.
You will not tell me.
Be prepared, because we are going to ratchet that Instagram war up just a little tiny bit, just a little bit. Something.
Got to go back to my battleship pieces and got to figure out my strategy now.
Some kind of character might get injured or something. We'll see. Anyway, look at his face.
I already killed the blockhead. I beat him with a YPN bomb. Like, what more can you do?
This is true. But here's the thing. Okay, you were talking about how they need to have like a kind of come to Jesus moment, and you're not wrong, because it's more, I don't blame the leadership as much as I blame the people who are following the leadership, because the leadership's just teaching what they think they want to teach.
Right.
The people following are supposed to check it and see if it's like, why would I do this? And they're not checking it. And so they sort of have to take ownership for the mistake that they make. But now that they've made that mistake, how about always check things out? Like she had a client once that basically stole her work. And then she Googled him afterwards and she found out like, oh my God, like this guy has been scamming people.
Oh, wow.
And she's now learned from that situation to always Google every client before she takes the job because you know, you don't.
And you still get burned sometimes, but not as badly.
Right.
But nothing to that extreme. When you go into it with your eyes open, that's the key thing. Like you go into it with your eyes open. So I was really mad today because, you know, I'm 100,000 years old and my brain doesn't function the way it used to. And I love the Denver Broncos. They are my absolute favorite football team. And I have never been to a live game with them ever. Not once. Never. Zero. And I've been a fan, I don't know, 42 years. That's all. And I've never seen them. It's just football's too dang expensive, right? Well,
unfortunately, yes.
There's a preseason game tonight, and I thought it was next weekend.
I didn't think 50-yard line's a lot cheaper.
I didn't think it was this weekend. I thought it was next weekend. And I go on SeatGeek to look for some hockey tickets for when my daughter is here, and I see $5 seats to go and watch the game. And I look at the time, and it starts in 5 minutes. So I was like, well, I guess that's not happening. $5. I could have finally gone to see it for $5. Now you watch when they come here and when they come here to play the Chargers in like December, it's going to be like $150 to get in for one ticket.
I'm pretty sure they'll beat the Chargers. I'm keeping my expectations low for that.
The thing becomes, then I have to make the decision. You know, do I want to spend $300 so that Torya will go with me, or do I want to like do what she would want me to do, which is just go by myself? And I don't really want to go by myself because, especially had I been before, different story. But I want to experience the very first time with somebody else who can kind of, you know, enjoy it with me.
And sure, isn't that also a problem to go into live games anyway? That when you go, let me give you an example. Let's say I went to a UFC event and I got as close as I could to the cage because those are expensive. Those are like $1,000+ a pop to be even cage side.
Right.
So let's just say if I went something like maybe the 350 area seat area that's midway, what am I going to be doing most of the time? I might be watching the walkouts of guys that I want to see, but most of the time I'm going to be watching the screen because that's a closer depiction of what's actually happening inside of that cage. When I went to the San Diego Chargers game back in 2008, I want to say that was 2008 when they defeated the Colts, and Darren Sproles had the game of his life because I was in San Diego at the time and when I was still with the Navy. Most of the time, even though I was able to see a lot of the game from certain points, I was able to see Darren Sproles take the final touchdown in overtime. But most of the time, I'm looking at the screen and I go, I paid and you have that moment of where you want to kick yourself. I paid this to be sitting here and watching this when it could have been in my AC and in my home at the quote 50-yard line for the Broncos in your case, or I could have been avoided some dodo bird I had to sit next to that could possibly ruin my entire afternoon. I'm just throwing other scenarios out there.
That part's very true. I like how you think positively while I'm thinking pessimistically. You know, because
great minds think alike.
That's just me. You know, it's like I'm not going to assume in this instance, and I should assume the good side, but I'm not. I assume the bad side. That's
you want the experiences, you want the memories. I mean, sure, but still,
I don't want to. You know, like I like to go at least once. That'd be the thing. That's why actually I like baseball games the most because I think they're the most authentic as well. Because you go there and there's not like a screen. They show replays, but you got to watch the baseball game live, like right there as it happens.
Agreed.
And I actually think that's why newbies have a harder time understanding baseball, which you and I both know is a simple sport. Mm-hmm. They have a harder time understanding that than say football. And it's like
it doesn't move as fast.
And it's because they don't see it on a screen, and everybody's so damn comfortable with looking at things on a screen.
Very true. And often you can go with the Torya Empire on this one because again, a hockey game going to is actually a pretty good experience to go to. It's not really. It doesn't feel like a waste of your time when you go watch hockey.
Exactly.
I like hockey.
Yeah.
My daughter and I were talking about how I personally feel all sports are better in person than on the TV from the perspective of the energy.
Yes.
But for what I usually do on purpose is buy the lesser expensive seats, because then, all right, it was worth it to me to spend $100 for this experience, like you said, versus $350 for multiple people, especially. No, at that point you're like, oh my God, how much did I spend for me to stare at a screen? Like,
you have that moment at some point, unless you have enough adult beverages in you that make you just go, here I am.
And it happens with hockey too, though, and
to me,
soccer.
root beer floats for me, and that's a long day.
Well, we've had a long weekend, and it's only Saturday.
Oh my God.
And that whole scenario I walked you through earlier has actually gone down. And
okay.
It's frustrating because it's literally one of those things where one person's reality is not reality. And like everyone else involved sees it one way, and that person sees it a completely different way. And I'm open to the idea that everyone else could be wrong, but I'm just kind of saying, reasonable minds are going to assume that 20 people that see it one way, that must have been the way it was.
Most of the time, perception is reality, yes.
If you were on a jury and they presented that case, you'd be like, yeah, I'm going to go with the 20 people who said that he did it. Because
if it doesn't fit, you must quit.
Yeah, it's great. Torya will tell you, though, that's one of my favorite court lines ever because, they won with it, didn't they?
It's brilliant. Even though, the evidence goes a different way, the narrative absolutely won them over. So, I don't want to get too...
But dude, think about that, though. Like, how ingenious was it of them to be able to take, like, all of this physical evidence and negate it with one thing? Oh, look, the glove didn't fit. And I could make a glove not fit that fits.
Can we get
perfectly.
him to straighten his fingers, please?
Yeah.
Can we get him to hold a highlighter?
It's funny because that one thing negated, that was Mr. Simpson's DNA. It's like a 99.9999999999998% chance that it's O.J. Simpson. Oh, okay. That's negated because the glove didn't fit. All right.
Then we have a guy who steps forward and says, I will use my Fifth Amendment right. Okay. Way to blow your case with Mark Furman. Good job with that, because that's all anybody's going to remember.
But that's why I always tell people when they complain about the OJ verdict that the jury did their job. And I can see, you may not agree with their ultimate decision, but I can see how they arrived at their decision at least. I think that's important in any situation like this. You have to understand how they got there.
What would happen, hypothetically, if they came out while everybody is watching this in Los Angeles and they found him guilty? Can you imagine the riots that would have taken place that would have surpassed anything that happened in 1992? You were going to get either celebration or you're getting a riot to the third degree.
In a way, you were going to get a riot either way because...
You were, but you got people that were shocked and dismayed, and you still had nasty, hateful arguments between each other, but you didn't have a city that was up in flames.
But think about, okay, what do you think would happen today? That's just a good segue into something.
Good one.
What do you think would happen today if that kind of thing played out on social media?
Honestly, what would happen today... I again, you can correct me if you want, because at 25 years later, the sting of everything is still very present, and it's even more present with the social media that's attached to it. I just believe that if it happened today, are you saying if he was found not guilty or if he was found guilty?
Not guilty.
He was found not guilty. I believe there would be a lot more acceptance of hate groups that would emerge in so many areas across the map globally, that everything that people have complained about with under Trump's administration, I think it would put all of those. I think you know what I'm getting at here.
No, I have to agree with you. I think that because of the ways. See, one of the things that bothers me about social media, they talk about using it to go viral, right? And we all, as podcasters, we want an episode to go viral because that's going to help.
It's our vehicle,
find our show, right? Mm-hmm. But the other thing that can happen is one idiot can go out there and give the wrong piece of information on purpose and somehow make it go viral. And now people are out there repeating things that just never happened. And
exactly.
That's one of the things, we stand for on this show is talking to people in a real way about a situation. And, but only if the person's made it really clear that they're comfortable with that. If they haven't, then we we back off. But kind of let's tie this up, coming back to the cuss word thing and what you said, that's how we got there. Believe it or not, that's how we got there. And you guys think that I don't know what's going on, but see, it's right here.
He's sticking his sword in and he's twisting it with relish.
But no, the cuss word thing. You handled it like a mature adult. You gave us the choice. And not even that. You didn't say you have to pick one way or you have to pick the other way. Oh. You gave us the choice that sometimes we can pick one way and then other episodes we can pick another way. Sure. And honestly, I got to tell everybody, he's never once complained about whatever choice we've made. Again, an adult. Never. And that's why when Brian said, being honest and authentic, and I said, that's why we pick friends that way. That's why we have Brian as a friend, as one of our friends, because he's authentic. And I don't know why.
Shucks, folks, I'm speechless.
I don't know why, but I have a lot more respect. I have a lot more respect for people who are authentic than for people who have to put up a facade. I don't know why that is. I mean, if I thought about it, I probably would have a reason, but I just, in my gut, I have more respect for those people.
I appreciate that. I really do. And hopefully you understand that there's a difference between a facade and a persona / gimmick that you would use for a podcast. In other words, your favorite blockhead 100%. Does give you the ability to be able to attack me because I'm like, I've already put the name in their blockhead. And I go, that was used for so many years in the Peanuts comic strip. And even before that as it was used derogatory in that sense. But also, like I said, if people ask me, what would Jesus do? It's actually what would Sparky do? Because Charles Schultz himself went through the Second Great War, and nobody knew him for using any profanity either. I mean, they knew him literally for saying when he'd get upset, he'd say "good grief" and "rats." So why not try? I mean, I fail when I get behind the wheel. My sailor side comes out whenever my U.S. Navy tongue shows up when I'm behind the wheel. But I will admit though, it's not a bad attainable goal to reach for. It's not a bad objective for a podcaster because, again, it's nothing against y'all if y'all are going to use profanity. Again, it's your show. You've let your hair down. It is your content, but they don't need another one.
Let me know when you're ready to answer a question.
Whenever you're ready, the gloves can come off and it's down.
What in your mind makes a word bad?
I would have to say the intentions. I would say in many ways, when we look at the English language, there's a difference between what a education setting like a school or a corporate setting like the workroom or where you have your professional meeting places. There's a time where something is accepted as inappropriate or unprofessional, maybe because of the people that have been there. Let's say somebody who's been 50 years in the business, and this is a person that you want to be on their good side. There's a point to where you have a certain posture and a certain terms that you use. All I'm getting at, it comes down to what kind of intentions do you have with the terms that you use.
But who determines what those intentions are?
I think many ways the intentions come out of the emotions of the person. But
if I'm the speaker, don't I get to say to you, no, that's not about, I'm not using that as a derogatory curse word.
I would say yes.
To interject. Okay, that's. I knew you'd say that because you're an adult. But what people say is, no, I get to interpret what you said, and I get to decide what you said, and that's the problem. If you're gonna tell me the truth, you've just asked for something, and you should never ask for something that you don't want to hear the answer to. So you've invited me to tell you, no, I don't like your shoes, right? I mean, you've invited me to tell you that. And I get to choose. I get to choose what thing I quote pick on if I pick on something, and it doesn't make me rude because you're right about intention. If I'm doing it because I want to make the person look like a fool, well, that's offensive.
There you go.
But if I'm doing it because I'm just telling you we're having a problem here, and in order to communicate better, I need you to understand what I'm perceiving, and I'll listen to what you're perceiving. And then guess what? We'll kind of go, why do you perceive me that way? And I perceive you this way. And hopefully bring each other closer together so we can
hopefully a compromise, yes.
And get along. That's, it's not about bailing on the person, but when you don't act like an adult, that's what it is about. It's about defending yourself and not caring about the other person's perspective. Because you know what? One of the hottest debated things is abortion, right? You could be completely against abortion. I could be completely, okay with abortion. I will never believe anyone is actually in favor of abortion. I'm just going to put it that way. But you could be okay with it. We could be vehemently opposed, but that's okay. If you act like an adult and I act like an adult, we can be vehemently opposed. But that doesn't mean you're my enemy. You're still my friend. And that is what people should learn from this episode, which is going to be called "You're Still My Friend," by the way. So,
that is our business, Commissioner Mahoney. I assume.
Well, you kind of tonight a little bit. You made allusion to like make it a point to say that your battle with Victoria is not a serious one. It's all for entertainment. No. But we already knew that, so I'm just letting you know that like we're being authentic with you. If we thought there is a problem, we would just be like, dude, here's the problem, because we trust you. You're an adult. You're not going to act like a little child like some people have acted.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say that I have risen. Let's just say I've risen above a lot of the examples you use, because I can admit, listening to your last episode about the guy with the hotel room, I can honestly tell you that I have been that person before, and I look back on it now and I'm ashamed of it, because most of the time it was like when I was working 7 days a week, when I'm exhausted. I'm not going to say, Torya, put yourself in his shoes. I'm just going to say that now that I have a chance to sit back and reflect, I go, at that time I was working 7 days a week. I had barely money to scrape by at the time. And sometimes, customers that had been traveling after a long day or were needing me to come through for them. And sometimes the broken system that I'm trying to work with was not a good answer for them. It would bring out a toxic side of me too. But the best answer for that was that I needed to leave that job. And in so many ways, so if this authentic rage redhead that you ran into, I'm using the R acronym again, if he needs to leave the hotel business, then maybe that'd be the best thing for him.
Well, you're right though, Brian. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're right, because literally, if you remember the story, when I went back there, I very nicely said, "Oh, hey, I'm sorry, that room's not ready yet. Like the maid's still in there and stuff's piled up." And I was like, no worries, no big deal. I literally said that. She'll tell you. I say no worries a lot to people because I want them to know, like, I'm not stressing about it. Who cares? Right. I said no worries. I need
to bring this to your attention. Yes.
But we need a room because we've been driving since 6 o'clock this morning, and we'd kind of like to crash for a little while.
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, it's okay. They'll have it done in like about an hour and a half." And I was like, "Well, but no, like we're tired and we've been driving." And he started to get loud. Okay.
Right.
And so the girl says, shh, knock it off. I was still talking, like a normal human being. And then he got loud a second time. And when he got loud the second time, I got loud. And he was like, I said, even your coworker's telling you to shush. He goes, "Well, why are you raising your voice to me?" So then I told him, when you come at me, I'm going to come back at you. You reap what you sow, man. You put it out there, you're getting it back. And I agree with you. I could have completely been restrained and never said anything. And I would have also been okay. But it's also okay to be like, dude, you came at me. Now I get to come at you. And I did it in a respectful way. I didn't treat him like dirt. I even explained why I came at him. And then, of course, we had the problem with the key. She's smart. Right. She's like, well, now Mike's going to lose it. So I'm going to take the key. But you know what's funny? I wouldn't have lost it. I was like over it with this guy. I would have just went back down there and been like, okay, well, now I kind of like the room before. Now we can't get in. And he was like, I just used the key. Well, just because you worked once doesn't mean it's always going to work. So did you. Everything has a point of failure, right?
Right.
Everything. So I used to love that. Like people, my car worked when I got here, but now it won't start. What's wrong? Well, yeah, that's called the point of failure. It happens. Well, bro was like, and she's like, well, it's not working now. Can you please come upstairs and open the door for us? Well, it turned out that we found out over the 5 days we were there that the lock, sometimes it needed to get hit twice with the card. And then it was
just jackass.
It was just a jackass lock, and that, and actually we should have noted that when we checked out that the lock needed to be fixed.
It worked on its own time. Yeah.
That's what it needed to be fixed because it wasn't tuned up.
Right. Or go all Office Space on that lock.
But again,
they did on the copier.
Why would you?
Oh my God.
Why is your first reaction that check-in time's at 3:00, but it's okay to let a person check in at 4:30 because, your first reaction should be, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm really so sorry.
Right. If you care about customer service and you want to keep that position, that needs to be your answer. Or if it isn't, then the time. again, it's okay if the time comes that guy needs to exit that job. He probably won't be there much longer, because I was no exception to this. I'm just saying that, I'm not defending the guy. I'm just going, I can look back now and go, I'm ashamed of how I let those jobs affect me, similar to that. I can go, I don't defend him. I could understand something breaking down in the system for something like just say we're talking about Best Western. There might be some protocols. I'll give you an example. I worked at Enterprise. There is a protocol, I can give you all a free hint here, that people are not supposed to downgrade you to a car. When they say, let's say you get to a rental car spot and they say, we don't have any cars. No, that's not what they mean. What they mean is they don't have the car that you made a reservation for. They can always upgrade you to something higher, but it's not best practices to downgrade you from a Ford full-size to a Ford Fiesta. That makes the company look bad. So they could do that with you, and that's why they check with their managers. And it's like that Seinfeld episode. The holding. Anybody can just take. That's what that whole scene is getting at. They're saying we don't have it of what you ordered, and can they possibly upgrade you and keep the customer happy? So I just know that there were little things like that happened that made me go, I probably couldn't do this for a living. And then, and now here I am with middle school dodo birds and couldn't be happy.
I think that people in general are interesting because they don't want to understand that they have to coexist in society. And so they have to be accepting of your opinion, my opinion, other people's opinion. And they unfortunately, especially, no offense, but especially, religious people, they want everything to be their way. And I respect religious people who put it out there, explain why, and then let you respond how you respond. I don't respect the ones that beat you over the head, right? And there you go. That's where it goes. So anyway, it's been awesome talking to you. Tell people where they can find you.
You can find me if you just Google your favorite blockhead. You'll see me across the board. I think you can find me even on the dark side now, Launchpad DM. I'm sure that's going to get you a little bit hot under the collar there, Mike. But you can find me on iTunes. You can find me on Spotify. You can go to yourfavoriteblockhead.com to follow the blog page and find any of the episodes from past and present. And we just had a great episode. Episode 103 is where we're at. We got several. I got an MMA breakdown coming up soon, all about Bellator. You should tune in. It's going to be a good time.
All right. Well, with that.
Good night, everyone.
Hasta la bye-bye.
Hanging up the blockhead phone now.
Thank you for listening to the Nightly Rant.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Google Play.
If you didn't enjoy the show, please just ignore that previous request for a rating.
This has been a Yogi's Podcast Network production.